This week's show is nothing but WrestleMania talk. So, I mean, it's just from everything related to it, and it kind of fun, right? This isn't the first time WWE, obviously we know about WrestleMania 9, so this isn't the first time they've gone for WrestleMania. It is the first time in 31 years since they've gone for WrestleMania, which they did in 1993. A much different Las Vegas, I would say, compared to then, and a much different WWE in comparison of then, as they just put out the WrestleMania 9 documentary. Brandon, we were talking a little off air. What did you make of the WrestleMania 9 documentary? Anything that you liked about it, or anything noteworthy about the WrestleMania 9 documentary?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was decent. I mean, it wasn't, and you actually, I'll steal your quote before we got on the air. It was a decent documentary for a poor pay-per-view. So, just kind of put the words out there. But no, I just, the whole infamous story of Hulk Hogan, getting hit by I think it was the Wave Runner or something like that.
That's what he says. Yes.
Yeah, that's what he says.
That's how he says he got the black eye.
Yeah, I mean, and then there's other reports that Macho Man and him had a little scuffle. So it's, that whole thing was interesting, and obviously, Bret Hart getting screwed back then, and Bret Hart making the comment in the documentary that was the worst screw job that he felt. And I'm thinking to myself, even worse than Montreal. I was kind of
probably at the time, right? It was
he didn't specify.
One.
He didn't specify though. It was he didn't get specific. Other than 97, he didn't even say it. He was just this is the worst screw job, because I think he felt like him and Yokozuna put on I would say a decent match for what it was, and they worked hard for a good amount of time, and then Hulk just shows up, barely does anything, and wins the championship. So a lot of the backstage stuff wasn't good either. Even Undertaker was, mentioned politicking, and that's, I mean, Hulk Hogan's been doing that for forever. We all know that. He's really good at the politicking, and he's also a draw. So, I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand, I guess. But it was overall, I didn't think it was a bad documentary. I mean, it's something I would say, if you don't remember WrestleMania 9, it's not a bad thing to watch.
I would say one way to save WrestleMania 9 without really changing it in the sense of different matches or anything like that. It's one way that I would save WrestleMania 9, because we all know back then you can't go off the air with a heel. The only WrestleMania that went off the air with a heel until recently with Roman Reigns was Triple H at WrestleMania 2000. So back then that was just not something you could do. And Yokozuna, as we learned, became champion and was the champion heading into the next year's WrestleMania. So the way you could kind of save that, because I imagine you wanted Yokozuna to win and beat Bret Hart, is the fact that maybe you could have went off the air with the tag team title match and had Hulk Hogan and Brutus Beefcake maybe win the tag titles, go off the air with that. That way earlier in the night you could have had Yokozuna beat Bret Hart, because we all know about a month later Hulk Hogan decided to leave the WWF again, this time for good, and he dropped the belt to Yokozuna at King of the Ring, and Yokozuna became champion and held the belt to the following year's WrestleMania. So we could have just got there earlier instead of having Hulk Hogan just hold the title and go off the air at WrestleMania as a face for a month or two before we got to the story we were trying to get to anyways. So that's one way to save that WrestleMania, I think, in that regard.
What was your match of the night for WrestleMania 9? I just want to get your thoughts.
Match of the night. Is there a match of the night for WrestleMania 9?
For me, honestly, maybe
the opener with Tatanka and Shawn Michaels.
I think it was the Steiner brothers and the Headshrinkers.
I mean, that it could have been that. I mean, it's difficult because again, there's not really any as they say, Dave Meltzer 5-star classics at WrestleMania 9. But one thing I will say about the documentary, and what I liked about it, is that we are watching it today, which is 31, 32 years later. And as we know, right, that is kind of a rarity in the world of documentaries today. We don't have to wait too long to know about what happened backstage. I like that mystery. I would be loving cameras backstage, WrestleMania this year. Take it all in, but don't release the footage a couple of years, right? Let some of these let's say John Cena, let him retire, let him be out of the business, let all this stuff kind of permeate before we release the documentaries, because that's what makes the WrestleMania 9 documentary as good as it was. If it came out in 1993, it wouldn't have been as noteworthy, right?
Well, that's the other thing too. In addition to that, we've lost a lot of a lot of folks that were in the business at that point. A lot of superstars that are no longer with us. That's part of it as well. And we've also, and I guess it kind of goes full circle too. The more I think about it. where obviously Lex Luger was, he had his match at WrestleMania 9, and it's like full circle that he's back in Vegas for the Hall of Fame this year. So I thought that was kind of cool too.
I want to talk quickly. This is WWE's third attempt at Allegiant Stadium. I say third attempt. One was successful and one was not. SummerSlam 2021. It was only, I think, the third event in Allegiant Stadium's history when it took place. And a lot of people say, it was really that year's WrestleMania. It was the first stadium show going back to the Royal Rumble in 2020. 50,000 plus fans, which, to be honest with you, WrestleMania will be lucky if they get that per night this year. So 50,000 plus fans they announced for SummerSlam 2021. They then announced that Money in the Bank 2022 was going to be from Allegiant Stadium. Ended up selling about 15,000 tickets, much lower than the 30,000 they were hoping for. So they moved it inside to the MGM. I can only imagine if that was, because this is 2022 we're talking. Imagine if that's happening nowadays, because there's so many people on social media that just are all about comparing AEW to WWE and attendance figures and selling out buildings. And yeah, DNA, they're so hot because they got 2,000 in a 2,000 seat arena. How awesome is that? But remember, WWE 2022 had to move Money in the Bank to a smaller venue because they weren't selling enough tickets at Allegiant Stadium. And what I thought at the time in 2022, that was going to pretty much hold off WrestleMania from coming to town for a while because they realized, I don't know, after struggling to fill a building, it's, a tall task. And as we're learning, Las Vegas, they have a ton of stuff going on, but it is struggling to fill all the different venues that they are currently doing. It is not the sold out ticket like it has been in the past, but I want to kind of show you and talk to you quickly about the SummerSlam 2021 card and tell me if this is not better than the WrestleMania card, at least on paper, that we're about to get, right? You have RK Bro, Randy Orton, and Matt Riddle versus AJ Styles and Omos. I don't know how I say that wrong, for the tag titles, right? You've got Damian Priest and Sheamus for the U.S. belt. You've got the Usos versus the Mysterios for one of the tag belts. You've got Becky Lynch making her return in what was supposed to be Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks. We learned about Sasha Banks' injury. Becky Lynch comes out from a return in what we very well could see at this year's WrestleMania, very similar, right? Becky Lynch makes her return after being gone for a long time after having a kid, beats Bianca Belair, becomes the new champion. Drew McIntyre and Jinder Mahal. I mean, yeah, that's what it is. Charlotte Flair winning the women's world title on Raw, beating Nikki ASH and Rhea Ripley, right? And we got Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley both in big women's matches this year. And then how about these for your essentially triple threat of headliners? Edge versus Seth Rollins, Bobby Lashley versus Goldberg for the WWE Championship, and Roman Reigns beating John Cena for the world title. So this isn't even John Cena's first main event at Allegiant Stadium, as he was going against Roman Reigns in his somewhat return after being gone from the business for a while, in which saw Brock Lesnar at the end of the night return to WWE. So, I mean, if that was your WrestleMania card, would you be good with that? I mean, that's a solid card, that SummerSlam 2021.
Honestly, I prefer this one coming up. I mean, to be honest, I some of those matches, you look back in hindsight, like Omos is, he wasn't ready to be on the stage, so to speak. Nikki ASH, like that was kind of meh.
But Rhea Ripley and Charlotte both in that match as well, though, right?
No, that's true, but I mean, Bobby Lashley and Brock, or was
Bobby Lashley and Goldberg.
Goldberg, excuse me. Yeah, Bobby Lashley and Goldberg. I mean, I was excited for that at that point. And then Roman and John Cena, I mean, yeah, it was cool, but I mean, I think from top to bottom, I honestly like night one right now. I mean, obviously you're gonna get, Cody and John Cena night two, but I'm just looking through this card right here. I mean, I really like night one. Even like the only match to me that I guess I don't have a lot of interest in, but it's still probably going to be a good match because of the people involved, is Rey Mysterio and Gulf of America's El Grande Americano. Like that's the one match that I'm not like vested in, so to speak, but I think it'll still be a good match because Rey can still go, and obviously we know this is Chad Gable. Chad Gable is obviously really good.
And we'll talk about all the omissions of WrestleMania this year. How many people are not part of the card? Chad Gable is one of those people who is not part of the card. I will
Wink,
stand
wink.
by that. But before, I have to say, this is crazy. It's John Cena's second time main eventing Allegiant Stadium, second time going after the world title, in which is going to hopefully get him that record-breaking 17th world title that we play along with in the record category of WWE. But before we get into WrestleMania and the card itself and Allegiant Stadium and stuff like that, for those of you out there who don't attend WrestleMania, it's just a television show, I understand. But to kind of put it into perspective, and this year is, balls to the wall, despite the fact of who will be in attendance at anything, but it's just balls to the wall about how much stuff is literally going on in a short period of time. I kind of want to just detail just what I basically know, and there's probably more stuff, so I'm definitely missing it. This is just a general, but from wrestling conventions, right? You have the WWE World, that's their own thing. They've got all the autograph signings, but you have WrestleCon, which goes on unassociated with the WWE, which has, so many people you can meet. Ronda Rousey, Sting, Tony Storm. So, if you're an AEW fan, a WWE fan, Kurt Angle's going to be at WrestleCon. Barbarian back in the day is going to be at WrestleCon, right? We all remember him from WrestleMania days. Shelton Benjamin, he's going to be at WrestleCon. Tessa Blanchard, Tully Blanchard. The Boogeyman, D'Lo Brown, Matt Cardona. Literally anyone who isn't affiliated with WWE. Jinder Mahal, we just saw he was at Allegiant Stadium taking on Drew McIntyre in that. Demolition, Ultimo Dragon, the Ted DiBiase, the Dudley Boys. It's Elijah, as we know as Elias, Zilla Fatu, Ric Flair, Mick Foley. The point is, the list goes on, and anyone you can think of that doesn't work for WWE or isn't affiliated with a Legends contract will be signing autographs at this. On top of the fact that if you did sign a Legends contract, you're probably at the World signing autographs, and you might be doing a little bit of both. You have another convention put on by the Wrestling Observer. They're running their own pseudo convention. GCW, as we know and as we've talked about, they're doing their own thing as they do all the time, but it's affiliated now a lot with WWE. If you're not familiar, Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, which is a part of 12 different shows they are running, has Natty, Natalya Neidhart in action. Shayna Baszler will be fighting in that. Karrion Kross will be fighting in that as well. Obviously, Josh Barnett's going to be fighting in that. But there are so many stars and WWE stars in Josh Barnett's Bloodsport. Obviously, GCW will be incorporating, I think, a 13th show, which isn't a part of their 12, to do the WWE ID tournament. There is Future Superstars of Wrestling, which is a Las Vegas promotion, which will be running a show based on WWE ID talent as well. Just looking at Eventbrite, on top of all of that, you have Micro Midget Wrestling going on multiple shows. You have Prestige Wrestling running a show. You have Black Diamond Wrestling running a show. You have Deadlock Pro Wrestling running a show. You have Texas Wrestling, New Texas Wrestling, which is obviously out of Texas. They're running a show. You have WrestleCore running a show. You have Stardom running a show. These are outside the 12 that are with GCW. So, and on top of that, on top of 30 pro wrestling shows that you could probably attend that aren't affiliated with the WWE, you have Chris Van Fleet doing an interview show, right, with like a live podcast. You have the Cardonas doing one of their figure podcasts. You have the Not Sam podcast. You have the Busted Open doing a master's class with Ric Flair, as well as their traditional WrestleMania party. You have some other meet and greet and kind of like live wrestling shows that aren't wrestling shows, but like obviously the WWE's doing like the Undertaker show, the Roast to WrestleMania, the Hall of Fame. They're doing all those after parties. There's literally, like I said, if you didn't go to WrestleMania, you would be absolutely chocked full of stuff to do wrestling wise. There is just not enough time in the day. TNA is running a show on Thursday night that I think is an amazing card. The headline is a barbed wire massacre between Mance Warner and Sami Callihan, but the Hardys are on that card. Joe Hendry's on that card. Masha Slamovich is on that card. So you have TNA doing a TNA Plus event from the UNLV Arena. That's a big deal. You have multiple, when I say multiple, you have multiple divas and drag shows. So if you like drag shows and women's wrestling and you want to go to do something Las Vegas-like, you can go to a drag show that involves Melina is hosting one of them. Kelly Kelly and Candice Michelle are hosting another. So there's a divas drag show on top of there's just so much stuff. So if you think, okay, well, hey, here in Syracuse, we've got the event or the the venue to host a WrestleMania. This kind of just shows you just the ridiculousness. And I feel bad for anyone going to Las Vegas this weekend that isn't into wrestling, because it's going to be wall to wall wrestling everywhere they go. And every theater and every hotel is wall to wall wrestling. So it's multiple convention centers, multiple convention stuff. It's kind of crazy. I will say it's weird that WWE is hosting the World and WrestleCon are happening at the same convention center. Obviously, it's a big convention center, but for people like you, Brandon, who have not ever been to Las Vegas, the amount of convention centers that they have is just ridiculous. I don't even know why you would have so many. When SummerSlam was there, they had the Superstore set up in the MGM Convention Center, and they could very much host the WWE World within the MGM Convention Center or the Caesars Palace Convention Center. Like, every casino has not just an arena, not just a theater, not just a place to see comedy and live events, but actually a convention center. I wish WWE was hosting it at the MGM, because that's closer to Allegiant Stadium, that's closer to T-Mobile, and it's literally, there's so much stuff and there's so much space to have literally everything going on. It's crazy. But to just give you kind of a feel of what is going to be going on in Las Vegas from essentially Wednesday night all the way through. And I think Mark Henry said he's going to be doing like some guest DJ sets from some clubs. It's just insane, the amount of stuff that's going on in Las Vegas. So if you want to know what goes into a WrestleMania, it is just, you can't. It's good and it's bad, because literally you just can't. Like, if I went to Bloodsport, that means I'm not at the TNA pay-per-view. And if I'm at the TNA pay-per-view, that means I'm not at Bloodsport. And if I'm not at either of those, I'm not at the Divas and Drag. I'm not at, something else going on, another pro wrestling WWE ID tournament, what have you, right? Just the amount of stuff is crazy going on, but it's all surrounding WrestleMania itself at Allegiant Stadium. WrestleMania 41, the 40th anniversary, if you want to be specific, of WrestleMania, the second one in Las Vegas. And the best part about WrestleMania is it creates so many talking points. We can debate all day whether it's the prestige of going to WrestleMania or it's the fact that you're just a wrestler in WWE, so you should be on it, right? Is it quantity or is it quality? Because some people are saying 14 matches, there should be 16 matches. Why not include more? Why are the Motor City Machine Guns not on the WrestleMania card? Well, other people are like, it should be a privilege to be an exclusive company on the WrestleMania card. So there's that to argue over. There's the ticket prices, which are a crazy thing to argue over this year, because they've obviously made it so that we're currently not sold out. Or could it be the card itself is why we're not sold out just a few weeks, a few days away?
Probably a
combination. Right? Yeah. This is a very hyped up WrestleMania when it comes to the event itself. They put tickets on sale a long time ago. They announced this a year ago. Las Vegas, as we've seen on every single show from Raw and SmackDown, they're hyping up all the millions of shows WWE is running, right? There is no just, hey, it's WrestleMania next week. It's literally like, get your tickets, get your tickets, get your tickets. This, Tony Hinchcliffe's show, the Dead Man show, the Hall of Fame show, the SmackDown, the Raw. Like, they couldn't be pimping tickets any more than they are now, talking about Fontainebleau as the official hotel of WrestleMania, all that nonsense. But one thing I want to kind of argue a little bit about when it comes to this in WrestleMania, and I think it's a good thing to talk about, is the word main event. Main event, right? It gets thrown around. It's the jargon that we call and the moniker we call Jey Uso. But when it comes to main event, WWE advertises every year. If you win the Royal Rumble, you go on to the main event of WrestleMania. We heard it many times with main event. Jey Uso is now literally the main event of WrestleMania. But now with 2 nights, we also have the term thrown around of is the night one closing match the main event. Do we have one main event for WrestleMania, Brandon? Or do we have 2 main events? Or do we have 4 main events? What is a criteria that you give to a main event? How do we determine that? Because if you watch, remember WrestleMania 9, which we just talked about the documentary, it's a double main event, meaning that the tag team match against the Money Inc. and Brutus Beefcake and Hulk Hogan didn't close a show, but was considered a main event. Hulk Hogan and Sid Justice did close the show, but wasn't the world title at WrestleMania 8. And that was included as a double main event with Ric Flair and Macho Man. So is it all about closing the show? Is it being the title match? What is your definition of a main event, and what here on this card is a main event?
So for me personally, it all goes back to Royal Rumble for me. If they're going to be the main event and by winning the Royal Rumble, then they need to be the main event. But the way to kind of get around that is, the Royal Rumble winner, women's and men's. Obviously, Charlotte and Jey Uso, they won their respective Rumble matches. They should coin the phrase championship match at WrestleMania. Maybe they shouldn't go main event. Maybe they need to tweak that verbiage a little bit, because in a year like this, it's tough, because the main event night one to me is Reigns, Punk, and Rollins. That's the main event. And then night two, obviously, we have Cody versus Cena. So that's the first part of it. Now, since they haven't done that, and we're already at that point where WrestleMania is right around the corner, we're doing our WrestleMania show, I think the way you have to do it is in the same kind of way that UFC does it. But it also has to go, it's kind of times two, I guess, because UFC has their pay-per-views, on a Saturday night. It's a one-night show for the weekend. WrestleMania is now 2 nights. So for me, I think it has to be, I think there's 2 main events on Saturday, and I think there's 2 main events on Sunday. So I would call it the co-main event, essentially, is how I would word it. But I guess it stems for me personally, I'm a purist. I like the main event to be one on each night. That's me. So for me, it would have to go back to Royal Rumble. It would have to go back to Royal Rumble, where they coin it like this: the winner of the Royal Rumble gets their shot at a championship at WrestleMania. They don't need to put main event. They don't need to do that anymore. That's me. That's my opinion on it. But since we're already here, I think you do kind of the UFC version, where you got the main and the co-main. That's how I would do it.
In the world of Women's Royal Rumble, the Women's Royal Rumble winner has only closed the show of WrestleMania twice. One time they did it when it wasn't 2 nights, and one time they did it when it was. And one year, WrestleMania 37, was a year where the Women's Royal Rumble winner was in the main event on night 1, and the men's was on night number 2. If you want to talk purist, I'm a purist in saying there's only one main event, period. It's the one that is closing the show on Sunday. This isn't WrestleMania 41 and WrestleMania 42. It's WrestleMania 41. It is one show that you want to be a part of. As we know, we argue all the time over this. I am a purist in the sense of this is one elongated show. There's people out there, and with ticket prices, I fully understand, only go to one night of WrestleMania. But, the crazy part about that and what makes this seem like one show is because when Jey Uso wins the Royal Rumble, or Charlotte Flair wins the Royal Rumble, or CM Punk wants to main event WrestleMania, he doesn't say a night. He doesn't say Saturday. He says WrestleMania. And we learned just this week what the matches are for each night. So you can't tell me back in October that anybody is like, it's people who buy tickets. I get it. You're getting whatever's the most convenient for you. But here's one thing, when tickets go on sale back in October, November, whatever it is, the main match, the one that involves the world championship, the one that either Roman Reigns held or Cody Rhodes has held, that is going to be your show closer on night number 2. That going forward. That's why I think that's really the main event. But also, too, you can't tell me that anybody is buying tickets back then based on certain matches, because you have no idea what is going to be on either night.
It's the pomp and circumstance of WrestleMania is what it is.
I would say if you had to buy one night based on matches, obviously I'd always just buy night 2, because that's the only one for sure that the main event is going to be closing the show. It's always a thing to me, like, to go to 2 nights of WrestleMania. Like, I don't really foresee myself ever doing the one night thing, just because of the fact that you don't even know what you're going to get. How can I buy a ticket to go to WrestleMania and be going to see? I don't know. I can't even tell you what I'm going to see if Charlotte says, I want you, Tiffany Stratton, at WrestleMania, and I've got tickets to WrestleMania, and I'm going, I don't know if I'm going to see that. I don't know if I'll be in the building for that. Like, that's why this whole 2-night thing, it's a collective show. I get it.
It sucks. The 2-night thing sucks. I don't like a 2-night WrestleMania. To me, I don't mind it being one night, whether it's Saturday night or Sunday night. Make it one night. Make it a banger. And this, I know we've talked about it before, where we like that 2.5, 3-hour-ish pay-per-view mark. Because this is WrestleMania, you obviously go longer because of the pomp and circumstance. Make it one night, and then that's it. We don't have to worry about it. But because we have night 1 and night 2, in my opinion, I call it WrestleMania. It's like think of the Titanic back in the day, the movie The Titanic, where you had to get two tapes, and you had to go from side one to side two, so to speak.
Yeah.
So for me, that's how I look at this. It's a very, like you mentioned, an elongated show. So to me, I look at it like this: night one, main event, co-main event, and then night two, it's main event and co-main event, main event. I look at it that way. But I am one of those. I'm a purist in the aspect of one night for all the marbles. That's the way it should be.
And it's crazy because a lot of people talk about who goes to 2 nights. A lot of people who don't go to any WrestleMania. I can tell you, as somebody who's gone to every 2-night WrestleMania, with the exception of COVID, anyone that had people in attendance, the people who were sitting beside me for every single one of those 2-night WrestleManias were always the same people. Now, I don't know the whole stadium, but I can tell you the people sitting around me for night one are always sitting around me for night two. So I think the consensus is a large chunk are going for 2 days. Now, there's obviously people out there who aren't, but I say a large chunk because, again, it's like if, you talk about, like, you like basketball, right? Final Four. If your team wins the semifinal game on Saturday in the Final Four, you're going to the second game on night 2, right? It's the whole thing. If you're going to the Final Four to support your team, you're not just going to one of their games, you're going to both of their games. It's a little bit different because if your team gets eliminated, you cannot go to night 2. But the idea is that you're going to the whole shebang, the whole weekend of events.
Now, here to that point with, like, for going back to, like, the WrestleMania, where you've gone to all these shows that are 2 nights, obviously COVID, that's a whole different animal. To that point, I think the reason why you see the same people you're sitting with on both nights, generally speaking, is because they're out of town just like you. But there's probably a small pocket that live in Vegas, or they're in I don't know, like in a decent driving distance where they're like, I have to work one of the days.
Yes.
I can go to one or the other, and that's it.
Yes, and that's who I think. I don't think anyone's flying in to Las Vegas or any WrestleMania location because they're going to be there all weekend anyways. You're not flying in and making a trip out of it to just do that one thing. A good example, right? I've never been to Disney World, but I imagine that, people spend multiple days there. They don't just fly in to go to Animal Kingdom, right? Unless they're going to Disney all the time or something and they're flying in left and right. But if they're flying in for like a once-in-a-lifetime trip to Disney World or a once-in-a-lifetime trip to Universal Studios, they're not just flying in, going to one of the parks and then flying home. They're kind of hitting up everyone because everyone's got something different.
I'll cut you off there. And I know my dad and my sister, they particularly, they'll take a long weekend and just go to a Universal Orlando and then come home. But I think they're in the minority on that one. But it does exist.
But they'll go to. But they have been before. I'm saying, like if this was a one-time trip, right? That kind of thing. Yeah. A one-time trip, they're going to try to do all the Universal or all the Disney.
I mean, when I was on my wife's a big Disney fan, so for our honeymoon, we went down to Disney World for a week, and we planned it out. We went to, like, Animal Kingdom. We went to, I know they've changed it a lot, but it was like Animal Kingdom. I think it was like they used to call it Epcot. They've changed, like
Epcot, I think, right?
I think there's been some changes. I'm not a Disney fanatic, so that's not my wheelhouse. But, like, the point is, I've gone to the different ones every single day because I want to get the full experience of every one. I don't want to just go to one 5 days in a row or 3 days in a row. I'm trying to hit as many parks as I can in the week that I'm there.
Yeah, and again, this is normally a whole trip, right? I'm coming in on Thursday, leaving on Monday. So on top of just WrestleMania, try to even hit up another wrestling show or another big show, if not one or two. The goal is here right now. The Hall of Fame is something I'm not going to probably attend. We'll see. But if we don't attend the Hall of Fame and talk about
wait, hold on, I got to backtrack there. So, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong here, but we've been doing this pod a long time. I thought Triple H was your all-time favorite.
He's my all-time favorite. It would pain me to not go to his Hall of Fame. But the way that WWE set up this year is just there's only so much time, so much money, and so many seats I want to sit in.
So you're not going to go see your all-time favorite Hall of Fame guy?
It might not be that way. I will say, though, the plan is the pseudo plan is to go check out, and you wouldn't guess it, but there's a free concert going on Fremont Street, which is the old part of Las Vegas, where all the old cooler casinos, the glitz and the glamour that you're familiar with in the movies. But there's a free concert in downtown Fremont going on, and you wouldn't guess the artist, a little artist called Living Color. I wonder why they're in town. I wonder why they're there putting on a free show. And I imagine, and I guess if I go see them, will it be the only time they're singing CM Punk's Cult of Personality song that weekend? I don't
If I had to
know.
place a bet, I think you're gonna see them multiple times if that's the case.
That would be, I feel as well that we'd hear that song more than once in the weekend. But there's just, like I said, there's so much to do. You try to soak it all in. It's a 2-night show. I'm going to both nights. I will say, I could see myself in the future, if tickets did get crazy or anything like that, going to WrestleMania without actually going to WrestleMania, because you want to guess it too. But when you're outside of cities, wrestling is kind of a niche thing. So the watch parties, like in Syracuse, New York, are kind of fewer and far between. But the cities that host WrestleMania put on a show for all of those people who aren't going, and the watch parties are legit. There was one in Philadelphia with RVD, I remember, at the casino, free of charge. I actually went to WrestleMania last year with somebody who didn't go to WrestleMania. I set him up at the ECW arena to go to a watch party with the Blue Meanie and Tommy Dreamer. So there's even cool, like, even if you went to Las Vegas and didn't go to WrestleMania itself, you can go to Raw, SmackDown, the Hall of Fame, and then go to a watch party, which is probably going to be a cooler watch party than there exists anywhere else. I know in Las Vegas, they've got the Circa Casino watch party with the Stadium Swim. If you're familiar with that, it's the place in Las Vegas. It's got the new pools up on Fremont Street where you can watch it on a massive screen television while being in the pool or a cabana.
Pretty cool.
So they have that, and that's being hosted by Chris Van Fleet. So yeah, there's definitely, like, the coolest ways to watch WrestleMania are also going to be there. It's kind of crazy though, because we've had this discussion, right, about whether it's a privilege to be on WrestleMania or it's just, hey, you're hired by WWE, that's what you would expect. And if so far this year we've had 2 pay-per-view or PLEs for WWE, they've had 4 matches apiece, right? So people who have not been able to get on the Elimination Chamber card or the Survivor Series card find themselves getting on the WrestleMania card. And some of these people are on the WrestleMania card for the first time on a pay-per-view since last year's WrestleMania. Like the Women's Tag Team Championship is being defended at WrestleMania. So quickly before we get into the card, is your idea of WrestleMania, I know it is kind of just everyone and anybody, but should it be like what we see with the other pay-per-views? 6 matches, 2.5, 3 hours. Should it be that, or should it be everyone and anyone and every title, like Night of Champions, if you will?
I don't want to say I'm hitting it down the middle here, like a nice middle line drive to center field, so to speak, but that's kind of where I'm going here. So I would like to see WrestleMania, maybe more towards like the 4 to 5 hours, just because it's the bigger, the biggest show of the year. It's supposed to be, and all the pomp and circumstance. But on the flip side, that only increases the matches so much. So for me, it still makes it prestigious to be on the show, because I personally, I know, everybody wants to get their WWE WrestleMania participation trophy. I don't like that. I think if you're one of the best in the business, you draw money, you're a fan favorite, you're one of, I don't want to say top guy or top gal, but I'm saying if you're, I don't want to see like randomly, like, no offense to Carlito at this point, but what has Carlito done to be on the WrestleMania card, kind of a thing? I don't want to see that, because I think it waters down it waters it down to me a little bit. So for me, I want it to be 4 to 5 hours, so that obviously there's going to be more matches, but at the same time, I still want it to be prestigious, where if you're on the card, it's an honor. It's a privilege to be on the card.
The way they have it set up now, if you go to SmackDown and both nights of WrestleMania, it would be hard pressed to watch WWE wrestling without watching somebody on the current roster. Because remember, SmackDown's 3 hours long. They're not putting that away because that's money. Everything's about money. That's what this is all, 100% about money. So SmackDown the night before WrestleMania has got as many people jammed on that card as can be. The tag titles are going to be on the line with the Street Profits and Motor City Machine Guns. You're going to have a 6-woman tag involving Chelsea Green and her little staff, and Zelina Vega and all of them. You're going to obviously have the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, which is essentially the scraps of everyone else. But there are some people on this not going to be in any of that, right? And that I think is kind of I don't want to say it's a problem, but it is a problem because they just don't have what they have. But the Wyatt Six, right? I know we Bo Dallas, right? He got hurt and stuff like that. But Alexa Bliss made her return at the Royal Rumble. Came out the night after on Monday Night Raw. to a big ovation, and then back to nothing. See you later. Can't do nothing with her. I don't understand that at
Makes
all.
zero sense.
Makes zero sense to me. Sami Zayn, I understand he's kind of milking an injury, but right now I'm going to guess they probably wish they did a little flipperoo on the Kevin Owens Sami Zayn thing at Elimination Chamber, because then you might have a more easier way to get Randy Orton involved, because we know Randy Orton's going to be in a match. As of this recording, we don't know yet. Is it going to be one of those John Cena things where he calls out The Undertaker and waits to the show to see if he answers like John Cena at WrestleMania in New Orleans? We'll see.
You know what I think is going to happen? I don't think that's going to happen as much as I would like it to happen. I think what's going to happen is Solo is going to be the opponent.
Solo's going to be the opponent. You don't see Randy Orton coming out of WrestleMania and then like a Seth Rollins with Cody Rhodes kind of thing?
I would love that. I would personally love that, but I think WWE is they're gonna throw Solo in there. I just had that feeling.
So you were telling me that you like night one of WrestleMania. And let's start talking about night one, WrestleMania. Yep. Saturday night, Las Vegas, Allegiant Stadium, night one of WrestleMania. It's not what you imagine, right? WrestleMania in general, if I was to ask you January 1st, because everyone loves to fantasize about WrestleMania, like they cannot wait and just and I can't wait to see John Cena versus Roman Reigns, The Rock versus Roman Reigns, Hulk Hogan, whatever, right? And then this is the card we get. If I asked you on January 1st, give me a match that's going to main event or be a part of WrestleMania, would any match on night one or night two immediately come to mind?
Actually, I'd have two, personally. I would have two that come to mind. I think it correlates with, because the Royal Rumble, to me, it correlates to Royal Rumble. I kind of already had it figured out, like Charlotte Flair, Tiffany Stratton, Jey Uso, Gunther. So for me, night one, I got two. I got a twofer. So like the rest of the matches, I mean, I could see maybe Jade Cargill and Naomi because of that whole Jade Cargill getting hurt, but I can't remember exactly when she got hurt off the top of my head. So it
was back in the fall.
I feel like that's possible. So there's three there. And then the rest of them, I just think they're all really good matches.
Yeah, kind of. Obviously, a lot were made recently, like Rey Mysterio and El Grande Americano and the War Raiders versus the New Day for the Raw Tag Team Championships. Jade Cargill, I would probably say yes versus, but we all thought it was going to be Bianca, right? That's what we thought we were going to have. But it's going to be Naomi, and this is one of the first women's, if not, I think it's the first women's match in WrestleMania history that doesn't have a title on the line or a stipulation, or like a number one content, any kind of thing to it. It's just a one-on-one women's match. Never in the history of WrestleMania before have we had a one-on-one women's match. I'm very interested. I will say, and kind of talking about this as well. I hope this is like WrestleMania 31, which is 10 years ago, in which the build was very bad, but the WrestleMania ended up being very good. What is your take on the build for this WrestleMania? Because I can tell you what, it has gotten a lot of thumbs downs, and I'm one of them.
It's hard for me to say emphatically one way or the other, because it's kind of and I hate saying this because, again, I'm hitting it down the middle. I'm playing the middle again. But there have been things that I feel like have been built up pretty well. Like I feel like I mentioned it, I think Gunther and Jay's been pretty good. I think Tiffany and Charlotte's been pretty good. Naomi and Jade, I think that's been, pretty decent.
I feel like Naomi and Jade, I feel like when that happened in Elimination Chamber, I was really excited for the build. And I feel like they paused, did a lot of stuff where they took a few weeks off. And that's the thing. I know they have a long time till WrestleMania, but they did a lot of stuff where they took a lot of time off. And I'd even say the same about Cody and John Cena. Cody's been there all the time. But, it's a lot of like Cody Rhodes is going to be here tonight on SmackDown. And he comes out and it's just him kind of cutting a promo. Or this week, it's just a video package of him on Raw cutting a promo.
I would argue
a lot of pauses.
I would argue too that I think, looking at the night one versus night two card, I think the night one card has a better build than a night two. I would have to say.
We got the two Royal Rumble winners.
Yeah, the Royal Rumble winners. I'm looking here. Looking at the card here. Honestly, I would say maybe Io Sky and Bianca and Rhea, that's been built up sort of decently. I feel like the Intercontinental Championship match, they've kind of gone in a weird way with that one, where they found out a funky way to get them all involved. You know what I mean? But it hasn't been the cleanest. I wouldn't say the cleanest execution on building it. So, I would say out of night 2, probably Bianca and Rhea has been probably, I would say, kind of like the pure build out of all the night 2 matches.
I would say that, I thought the IC title would be more multi-man than it is, maybe like a ladder match kind of thing. And I think that's one thing that this WrestleMania is lacking, right? Obviously, we don't have Money in the Bank at WrestleMania anymore, but nothing, obviously the Sin City street fight, that's not anything spectacular between Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre. That's just, they throw that on house show titles wherever they go around the country to try to give it more pizzazz. But no like big ladder matches, no cage matches, Hell in a Cell matches, those kind of things. Not saying anything really is warranting of Hell in a Cell, but it's just like, I think like a ladder match for the IC title might have a little more pizzazz to it and maybe a few more people involved.
Give me a TLC in this situation, especially when you got a guy like Penta in there where he can do some crazy things with the ladder. I think that would be kind of cool. So I would be cool with like a TLC, and then you'd have maybe some cool spots where Breaker does his, he's an athletic freak. I mean, I think he cut Carlito in half recently, so I think Carlito's still laying on the ground. I mean, that's how hard that hit was. Like, he could do something crazy into a table with a spear kind of a thing. So, like, I wouldn't mind seeing, like, a TLC style, but I do think that's going to be a good match. I mean, I like every single person involved, and I think Dominic, to his credit, has come a long way when it comes to in-ring. I think he's gotten a lot better. I don't think he's to the level of the rest of these competitors in the ring yet. I still think he's still working on it, but I think he'll do well enough to look adequate in this match. And I still think Braun Breaker's going to walk away. With the championship. I really do.
So without going match by match or anything like that, because I think a lot of times too, when championships aren't on the line, wins and losses don't really matter that much either if it's just a one-on-one. So I'll just ask you, what match you think will be the best match on night number 1? What match you think is going to be the best match on night number 2?
Oh man, I'll start with night 1. Just kind of looking at the card. I mean, I'm not going to go with the low-hanging fruit, the triple threat match, because that's probably the low-hanging fruit. With Roman Reigns, CM Punk, and Rollins. So for me, I like the way this thing has been built. I really think night 1, Gunther and Jey Uso is going to be a lot of fun. I think that's going to be a hell of a match. And then night 2, I mean, I think night 2, we were just talking about it. I think the actual match of the night is probably going to be that Fatal 4-Way for the Intercontinental Championship. If I had to pick one, I don't know what we're going to get out of John Cena match-wise. Like, John Cena, he was never known as a pure wrestler anyways. He always had the 5 moves of doom kind of thing and all that. So I think the Intercontinental Championship match is going to be I think it's going to be the most entertaining on night 2.
I mean, I'll say, this WrestleMania is the follow-up, right? Cody Rhodes, he's been champion for a year. I don't know if I would have predicted it that time, because after Roman Reigns had the title for the better part of 4 years, I thought we'd have a little more turmoil in his belt, but WWE, that's how they book things nowadays, right? Now we got a champion that holds it for a full year. Yep. I don't know if we'll have more turmoil if John Cena becomes champion or anything like that. I guess we'd have to. I don't see him holding it past December 31st of this year. But this is the follow-up, right? We've had 4 straight years of Roman Reigns as the champion, as the big-time match. And this feels like a number 10 plus 1, because what I say by that is, like, WrestleMania 11, obviously nowhere near the prestige of WrestleMania 10. WrestleMania 2, right? It's the sequel, nowhere near WrestleMania 1. And both of those were garbage in my eyes, to be honest with you. But WrestleMania 21, right? It was cool. It had the new breed, like John Cena and Batista becoming champions, but it didn't feel like WrestleMania 20. WrestleMania 31, which you talked about, right? That's the year after the Brock beats the Undertaker for the streak and Daniel Bryan and the Yes Movement. That seems to be Daniel Bryan winning the IC title, in an IC title ladder match, and kind of a throwaway WrestleMania when it comes to that build. So the ones after the anniversary years are always like, it's not as big as the year before. And I think that we have that this year. Roman and Cody was the main event of main events. And I think it was even the same the year before, the main event of main events. It was clear that was going to be the final match on night 2. You couldn't wait to see it. And now Cody is the Roman Reigns in this situation, taking on John Cena. We know John Cena, he's in the twilight of his career. He isn't the workhorse that Roman Reigns was or Cody Rhodes is. So it's not Roman and Cody in their primes. So I don't think that this main event has the pizzazz that even John Cena and Roman Reigns had at SummerSlam 2021, in where Roman Reigns, we thought his title was really in jeopardy that night after having held the title for the better part of a year and a half. But talking about, like you're talking about the matches that are going to steal the show and moving on to kind of matches that have champions involved, I want to kind of get your thoughts on who is leaving as a new champion, right? We all know the championship matches. We don't have to go one by one, but who's leaving WrestleMania as a new champion?
I would say the highest probability of all championship matches, night one or night two, for me personally, is I think Jacob Fatu is going to be walking out with the United States Championship. If I had to pick one, that's the one I would, if I had a bunch of money to blow it is Vegas, on a gambling parlay, so to speak. If I had to pick one champion, I feel like, I don't want to say guarantee, but in my thoughts and my opinions, the most likely to happen, I think it's Jacob Fatu. I think he takes the title off LA Knight.
Do you not see Charlotte Flair and Jey Uso becoming champions as well?
I would say Jey is more likely than Charlotte, honestly. I would say Jacob Fatu, I feel like, is definitely getting the championship. I would be very surprised if he doesn't. Charlotte, to me, and I know it's 1-on-1, 50-50, that's a toss-up for me. I could see it going either way because of how they built this up with the verbal jabs and all that stuff. And I would say Gunther and Jey. I would say Jey Uso, if I had to put a percentage on it, I'd say safely about 70% chance of Jey Uso leaving WrestleMania as champion. I want to leave 30 out there because Gunther's been such a great champion that they could just say, we're going to roll with Gunther longer. But I'm leaning more towards Jey Uso getting his moment.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's all about how they follow it up. But hey, we did see the same thing happen at WrestleMania 39 with Cody Rhodes, right? That was his moment. Finished the story. That's the T-shirt they sold. And he didn't end up leaving. And that was the main event. So it's easier for Gunther to win knowing that his match isn't even the last match of the night. So, if you want to send everybody home happy, the triple threat match is the match of the night. So it's easier to have a heel win in that sense if it's not the show finale. On night number 2, we see any titles changing hands there?
Let's see. Night 2. If I had to pick one in particular, because I already kind of buried the lead with Braun Breaker. I think he retains. I think John Cena. I think John Cena is the most likely title change. I think Cena's going to win. I really do.
Do we not see Io Sky losing to Bianca Belair or Rhea Ripley?
Oof. I would say, if I had to pick, and I'm really sitting here thinking about it because it's a really tough decision because I like all 3 women in that match. I think Rhea's getting the title. I really do. But it's not by a big margin. Like, in this match, because it's a triple threat style, it's like a 33 and change % chance that, you're leaving with the championship. If I had to do anything, I would say Rhea's at 50 and the other 2 are at 25%. If I had to do
the fact that you just said that, I now hope it would be amazing. This would be, I think, a WrestleMania moment I want to see. Now that you just said what you just said, Braun Breaker, right before his match, I want to see him on the screen in the back when they do, if they do one of those pre-things. I want to see him do the percentage math of him winning the match against Penta, Finn Balor, and Dominic, and I want him to go through and do the Steiner math. With him retaining the IC title. That would be great. I mean,
brand too. That'd be on brand.
Yes, that's what I want to see. I mean, I'm looking forward to AJ Styles and Logan Paul. I think that's not as exciting as Logan Paul, in other competitors, maybe him and other people we've seen in the past that are similar. But I mean, I think it could be a good match nonetheless. I just think the story's a little off. But talking about staying on championships, would you rather see Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez defend the women's tag titles against Bayley and Lyra Valkyria, or would you rather see the tag titles off of WrestleMania and the U.S. women's title and the IC women's title defended on WrestleMania?
That's an easy choice for me. I'd like to see the U.S. and the IC title face off. I
So
think that.
maybe like Lyra Valkyria versus Liv Morgan for one of the belts, and Chelsea Green versus Zelina Vega for the other.
Yeah, I would say that because I'm not as high on Chelsea Green as I think you're higher on Chelsea Green than I am. I don't mind her. Like I'm kind of indifferent with her. I know there are some pockets of the fan base in the universe that love Chelsea Green and everything that she does. Like I'm not, I don't have anything. She's not one of my favorites, but it's not somebody I don't root for because I do. But yeah, I mean, I'm a big Lyra Valkyria fan. Like I love everything she's doing in the ring. She's so much fun. Like she does everything that I'm looking for in an upstart competitor. So, seeing her in a tag match here is kind of meh. So, yeah, to answer that question, I would rather see the women's U.S. title and the women's IC title defended at WrestleMania.
Some final WrestleMania questions. Any big returns, whether it's during WrestleMania or Monday night, the night after?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to throw it out there. I don't know if it's going to happen. I haven't heard anything. Maybe you'll correct me on it in just a second because I haven't looked. I don't care to look. I just want to be surprised. I want to live in that moment. But I would love to see the return of Aleister Black, either at WrestleMania or the Raw after Mania. That'd be cool.
Becky Lynch has talked a little bit about taking time away from wrestling, and in some interviews she said she's kind of done with wrestling. Do you see her making a return?
I hope I'm wrong because I've been wrong on these plenty of times. I feel like you got a better shot of seeing Aleister Black return than Becky at this point. I think Becky is enjoying the time off, but I hope I'm wrong because selfishly, I need the man back in WWE wrestling.
And finally, Cody Rhodes, John Cena. We've talked about it a little bit, but the kind of the consensus or the thought, right? Because this is your main event. This is WrestleMania, the main event of main events, night number 2. It's not just for the championship, right? We've talked about obviously going forward. John Cena's advertised at a lot of shows going forward, but hey, Cody Rhodes is also. So, I mean, that doesn't necessarily say. And John Cena did say he was going to make the towns. So it's really, he should be making the towns whether he wins or loses. Yeah. Do we see the double switch? John Cena back to face, Cody Rhodes to heel.
No, I don't see it. I think we're going to see John Cena play this heel card, kind of like I mentioned, kind of in phases, to something I talked about on a previous episode recently. I think it's going to be in phases. I think he's going to get closer to the end of his farewell tour, and I think a switch is going to flip. And I think he's going to turn back to the John Cena that we all know and love as a face. To me, Cody Rhodes as a face right now is too good. It's too money. I think they got to keep him as a face for a while.
Do you see him leaving WrestleMania? I know you kind of already said, do you see him leaving WrestleMania as champion? Or are you sticking with John Cena as the record-breaking 17-time world champion?
Yeah, I think John Cena's. I got to stick to my guns with it. I think John Cena is going to take the title. He's going to break Ric Flair's the tie with Ric Flair. He's going to be a 17-time champ.
And do we see The Rock get involved at WrestleMania?
Oh, I would say if I had to put my finger on the pulse on that one, I say he helps John Cena win. That's
all right.
Yeah. It's hard to say because of his movie schedule and all that, but I think he gets involved, and I think he screws Cody again.
I really feel like this year's WrestleMania, if I'm not mistaken, this year's WrestleMania, and I know WrestleMania and WWE, they continue. It's a continuous story, but I guess the thought of WrestleMania every year is it's supposed to be somewhat of finality. But there's really nothing about this WrestleMania, no matches that I see as a finality, right? With that IC title being 4 people, I see obviously that meaning Finn and Dominic are going to kind of do something that breaks it off to maybe a one-on-one match down the road. I don't see this being the end of Charlotte and Tiffany because it's their first time around. I don't see this being the end of the Reigns and CM Punk and Seth Rollins feuds. I don't see this as the end of anything. I think this is just this feels like it could be at any pay-per-view when it comes to the importance of the matches. And I just don't see anything happening here where I'm like, well, that is that's it. That is the year in review right there.
I'll tell you this. There's one match that, I have to include in what you were just saying about the finality not really being there. And I think I think Jey Uso, like I mentioned earlier, I think Jey Uso is going to win the championship, and I think it'll be good to see Gunther, you know, on the chase. I think that'll be cool. I think because of what happened recently, like you can see Gunther kind of like his ego kind of got checked recently on with the interaction with Jay. Like his whole tone changed, so that could be a nice fresh coat of paint for his character as well.
WrestleMania is this weekend from Las Vegas. I hope when we're all said and done that it is a great WrestleMania. But the build, like I said, has been, it's just one of those things, right? It's regular life. We see that with Kevin Owens getting hurt, and obviously wondering what's going on with Randy Orton now. But it's regular life. When they build it up and they talk about tickets going on sale, you fantasize about Rock and Roman and all these major matches. And then when you get here, I'll be honest with you, War Raiders versus the New Day, right, which are barely finding time to be on Monday Night Raw. You're like, oh yeah, I forgot. It's still like the current WWE roster. But hey, that's the history of WrestleMania. Because you go back to WrestleMania 4 and you can go back to WrestleMania 5 and you'd be like, oh yeah, there's Barbarian and Hillbilly Jim or whatever on the card. It's not all Hogan's and Macho Man's and Warriors and Slaughters and Andre the Giants, right? There's a lot of Brain Busters versus the Fatus and stuff on the cards. There's a lot of the Blue Brothers from WrestleMania 11 with the old Zeb Coulter. There's even Zeb Coulter on WrestleMania 29 kind of stuff. There's a lot of Miz's and Brodus Clays. So it is what it is. It's the creme de la creme at the top, but then it's a little bit of everybody else underneath it. Some people love it that way. I just personally like the importance that is put on wrestling for a weekend because everyone and anyone who works in professional wrestling will be there in Las Vegas, and that's just the cool part. It's just kind of like it's like a convention. It's just getting together with wrestling fans for one weekend, whether you're watching on TV or you're there in person. I think that's the cool part. And we start the build to WrestleMania in New Orleans after this weekend, but we got to get to Vegas first.